We'll hear with the business then. We're going to start in Europe. Ministers signing off on an aid package for Spain's banks.
That's right, and it's worth nearly 40 billion euros. Sounds like a tremendous amount of money, and you'd be right in saying that. It is. But up to a few months ago, the ministers were talking about 100 billion euros being involved. And that's more like what the private sector thinks might be needed to save Spain's troubled banking sector. 2 to 3 times the amount that's been put up so far by Europe. So we'll see, but of course Spain's banking system in trouble there because of its exposure to the burst property bubble in that country. Also, Eurogroup ministers have put off a decision about a bailout for Cyprus. That could equal up to 17 billion euros.
OK, nevertheless, François Hollande sounding pretty optimistic, wasn't he, about the eurozone at a press conference yesterday?
Yeah, despite those difficulties we've just mentioned, he said, well, let's hear what he had to say. But these words could come back to haunt him because he said effectively the eurozone crisis, the worst of it is behind us.
There are no more doubts about the eurozone. We could have wondered a few months ago if the eurozone was about to implode or the exchange rates rocket, but look where we are at the year's end. Greece now has its support and its rescue plan. The uncertainty is gone. Italy will see its interest rates drop. Spain has obtained help for its banks. France's interest rates remain low and confidence has returned. So we have succeeded at this stage.
Well, President Hollande there was speaking in Lyon, where he signed an agreement with Italy. You saw there, of course, Mario Monti, to build a new high-speed rail link under the Alps. Now, the project is intended to boost trade links between the two countries, but there are big concerns about where that money is going to come from.
Shaking on a project that's been coming down the line for nearly 20 years. President Hollande and the Italian Prime Minister Mario Monti have agreed to financially back a high-speed rail link between Lyon and Turin. It'll mean Parisians could get to Milan in just 4 hours, almost half the time it takes at present.
We have a commercial relationship. Italy is the second biggest consumer of our products and our third biggest supplier. And just for that reason, we need to have links which match that relationship.
Building the line will be no mean feat. 200 kilometres of railway and a 57-kilometre tunnel underneath the Alps. It's designed to reduce the pressure on roads from heavy-duty lorries and thereby cut CO2 emissions. The project has generated furious opposition, though, on both sides of the Alps, with demonstrators taking to the streets of Lyon as the accord was signed. Critics aren't convinced it'll have significant environmental advantages, and many complain the price tag is too high. In 2002, the French Court of Auditors estimated a new line would cost 12 billion euros. It now says it'll cost as much as 26.1 billion.
They want to build a new piece of infrastructure that will have 5 times less traffic than the Eurostar, but will cost twice as much to build.
Despite Hollande and Monti's enthusiasm for the railway line, it'll be a long time before they get to travel on it. The first trains are scheduled for 2028.
Now, next, the old rivalry between the UK and France has sparked up again. This time it's over banking, isn't it?
That's right. The Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, he's accused France of making a naked attempt to steal London's financial crown. Now, that's after the head of the Bank of France, Christian Noyer, who you can see here, he said there's no rationale for Europe's financial centre being outside the eurozone. Of course, the UK still using the pound rather than the euro, but of the derivatives that are traded in the City of London, euros are worth more than the combined amount of derivatives traded in pounds and dollars put together. So you can see why the eurozone wants to bring that within the eurozone itself. Worrying for London because finance is the #1 industry for the UK these days, and finance ministers from across the EU are meeting in Brussels as we speak. They're going to be talking about banking regulation, and the UK is going to be fighting its corner, but it's increasingly worried that the 17 states of the eurozone are going to outnumber it when it comes to this.
Boris needs some glasses. He wasn't naked, was he?
I beg your pardon?
He had his suit on.
I see. I'm glad he wasn't.
What are the markets, Will? Let's move on quickly.
Moving on. Yes, Asian markets. Let's take a look at how they've closed. It's been a disappointing last couple of sessions, actually, there and in the US before it. You can see things just about ended up mixed. The Shanghai Composite actually leading the way, almost 0.8% up. But there have been disappointing surveys of manufacturing confidence in both the US and the EU, holding things back. And in the US, there's still no deal on the fiscal cliff, which is coming towards us on January the 1st, of course. We'll be hearing a lot about that in the next few weeks. In Europe, things are opening up at the moment, and the lack of optimism has rather carried over things pretty flat at the moment. EDF is trailing in Paris, lost 2% already this morning on news that a new generation of nuclear power plant is costing billions more than planned.
Now, next has already cost the US economy as much as $7 billion, and the White House has called for it to end. We're talking about a strike at the port of Los Angeles that has crippled the US's biggest commercial harbour for over a week now.
Going nowhere fast, thousands of containers wait to be loaded and unloaded at Long Beach Port. The strike has stopped cargo shipments for a week now at a cost of billions of dollars. Instead, shipping companies are having to divert to harbours further up the California coast or to Mexico. The strike began when 800 clerical workers walked off the job in a dispute over the future of union-guaranteed positions. Some 10,000 other port workers have refused to cross the picket lines, forcing a shutdown at 10 of the port's 14 terminals.
The thousands of workers that are laid off and not working, the $1 billion a day of cargo that comes over these docks in this basin now aren't moving, and the impacts are huge.
Together, the twin ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are the 7th busiest in the world. They handle $1 billion worth of goods every day, including 40% of US imports from Asia. The workers say the port operators want to reduce the number of union-protected jobs so they can outsource some of their positions to cheaper locations abroad.
We had 2.5 years with no contract. I mean, the jobs have been going left and right out of the country, and nobody's doing anything about it. Somebody has to step forward and say, we need to keep these jobs in America.
The mayor of Los Angeles has called for round-the-clock talks to resolve the dispute, while the White House has urged both sides to return to the negotiating table.
Now, do you remember this? It was only launched last year, but it seems the Daily is not going to be the newspaper revolution that its publishers were hoping for.
Yeah, if you don't remember it, it wouldn't be a surprise because not many people have actually subscribed to it, and that is the problem for the Daily. Launched to great fanfare. You can see Rupert Murdoch there of News Corporation launching it last year. He was hoping that it would catch on, people subscribing for just 99 cents a week in the US. Just on the iPad, it was meant to revolutionise the newspaper market, the future of the industry. Unfortunately, that is not going to be. The Daily is going to shut down in December. Only had around 100,000 subscribers at its peak, and basically I think it suffered from not having a website. Of course, you couldn't send a link to any articles unless you had, you have to have a copy of the Daily itself, and it didn't have a trusted brand really, which a lot of papers are relying on to get people onto their websites.
OK, and finally, what's the latest big company to come under the spotlight for tax dodging, Will?
Well, this is Dolce & Gabbana. The trial of the two designers themselves got going on Monday, in fact. They're accused of avoiding 420 million euros in tax. What they're said to have done is set up a shell company in Luxembourg, while still, in fact, operating out of Italy. According to prosecutors, they used this illegal move back in 2004 and 2005. So they, of course, deny all charges.
OK, Will, thanks very much. Will Edwards with the business news here on France 24. Just to update you on that story that we were bringing you earlier, French police arresting two alleged accomplices of the gunman Mohamed Merah, whose al-Qaeda-inspired shooting spree in Toulouse left 7 people dead back in March. I'm sure you remember that story. Cyril Vanier will have more on it after the weather here on France 24. Stay with us if you can.